America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any changes to the revised agenda?
I'm all set. Yeah,
No changes to the
no
agenda?
changes. You have the two here on the second page, community development updates and
Okay.
draft plan commission minutes, that's all.
Motion to approve the revised agenda.
Motion by Berg. Second by Seepersod. All in favor? Aye.
Passes. We have no presentations, proclamations, and acknowledgements. Public comment. So public comment is available for anyone who wants to speak about anything that's not currently on the agenda tonight. I know many of you are here for the general business matter regarding the ATVs. I will have give people a brief opportunity to speak on that when we get to that. But that aside, does anyone have anything they want to discuss? Going once, going twice. All right, public comment is closed. Consent agenda. Anybody have any questions or concerns?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Motion by Timmerman,
Second.
second by Schulter. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda passes. We have no public hearings scheduled, so we're on to general business. Yeah, are you presenting on?
Yeah, are you ready?
You're on it, Ron.
Rich, do you want to turn on the projector? Give this a few seconds to warm up.
For those that just came in, there are some additional chairs over on the side. Help yourself.
I got it.
Give that one.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks.
Apologize, I don't mean to disrespect by standing with my back towards you, but this is kind of the podium and kind of camera.
He's that kind of guy.
The camera and everything, so it's not on purpose. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Basically, at the last meeting, it was asked that we make a presentation in regards to possibly amending or changing the current ATV snowmobile ordinance. And so last week we prepared a report that we sent out with the council packet. And this PowerPoint presentation is almost word for word, shortened a little bit just for length, but about that document and to give you kind of some background and information about the statutes related to driving ATV, specialty vehicles, and golf carts and other vehicles inside the municipality, the city limits. So with that, so basically the goal of the presentation is to educate the council and the mayor about what we can and can't do as a municipality when it comes to regulating ATV, golf cart, and other vehicles to drive in the city. Going to talk about the current statute, what the state allows the city to regulate, and just educate about what our current ordinance allows and what you can do underneath it. And then at the end, the goal is for the city staff to receive guidance on how you wish to proceed. Answer a bunch of questions regarding what we can and can't do for the city. So with that being said, basically, there are state statutes that dictate what can happen on the roadways of our city. Every city is governed by state statute, what vehicles can drive on the roadways, how they can drive, speed limits, everything like that. Well, in the state statute, it does allow, under 169045, you as the governing body of the city to make rules and regulations in regards to ATV, golf carts, and other vehicles, and what they can and can't do within the city. And it basically states that you can, through ordinances, allow or not allow those vehicles to travel. And all the different types of vehicles that aren't regular motor vehicles that are licensed as cars. So, Elko New Market ordinance, we already have an ordinance that governs ATV snowmobile use within the city. And that ordinance basically defines what ATVs and snowmobiles are. And it states that none of those vehicles can travel on the city streets, but for the specific purpose of going from that owner's residence to an area, directly to an area that that vehicle can be used. So basically, from your house, you can ride your ATV or snowmobile directly to a trail or an area where it's permissible to operate that. And that's it. There is no general transportation permitted. You can't just drive around, you can't go to the store, can't go to get gas. It prohibits operation on parks, on sidewalks. It prohibits unreasonable driving, speeding, exhibition driving, reckless driving, or conducting that travel in a manner that would scare somebody, harm somebody. It establishes how close you can drive to somebody. It's a very long statute. I obviously wasn't going to put it up here because it's accessible on the internet through our website. Anybody can read it. It also sets age limits on who can ride and what they have to ride those vehicles from their house to and from a permitted area, a trail, another area that they can operate on. It sets the age limit at 14 to 18 years old with a safety certificate, and then, or a driver's license with a snowmobile endorsement. And it also, the ordinance makes a violation of the ordinance a misdemeanor level crime. So a speeding ticket, when you're driving down the road, you get a speeding ticket, that's a petty misdemeanor. It's technically in the law books is not even a crime. This city ordinance, when you violate it, is a misdemeanor, just like a reckless driving or careless driving. And it's done that way for the criminal procedures. So you can go to court and you can fight it and have certain rights to that. So, also, educate what our surrounding cities do. Go ahead, sir.
So that ordinance, when was that put into place?
That has been the same. From the gallery, 2011 is when it was adopted for this current iteration.
Do we know why it was put into place, or background and history at all of when it was put into place back then? Maybe you'll get there, I'm sorry.
Okay, at that time,
Since all of it,
the League of Minnesota Cities put out, because this was happening more and more, I've had the pleasure of policing for 24 years. There wasn't the ownership and use of these type of vehicles as there is now, and as it's grown exponentially, especially during a good economy where people have extra money to have playthings and toys like this, and vehicles and golf carts, and that hasn't always been the case. So the League of Minnesota Cities put out an ordinance that many cities adopted. And this ordinance is almost the same as, I know where I came from in Chaska when we enforced it. It's almost identical. It's a boilerplate ordinance. And why in 2011? Well, the two cities had just combined. Maybe Elko's ordinance and laws were different than New Market. And so they took that on to bring everybody under a model policy or ordinance.
I think that's primarily the case. And about that time, we were trying to work with the two snowmobile clubs to come up with some language that would work. And so the only inclusion we had was the ATVs and the call the snowmobiles, and that's primarily the reason it looks the way it was. And it was based on the model ordinance from different cities at that time. And as Chief said, up until at least we didn't have the number of different types of vehicles that were motorized.
Any other questions? And that's the best that I can recall. I was not here. I don't know why particularly, but that's kind of what I've gleaned from kind of other ordinances that came into place then as well. So another thing that was brought up, what are our surrounding communities doing? Now, many of these aren't very close. Some of them are very close. But what are cities that are kind of like ours doing in regards to ATVs? And so Belle Plaine allows, and you can read them, allows use of UTVs for general transportation, no ATVs. So basically, they don't allow the Class 1 style, the smaller ATVs. And then it allows golf carts only for people with disabilities. And they make a permit that you have to have. I spoke to the Belle Plaine chief this morning at the chief's meeting, got some feedback, we can go into that later on. Farmington, they do not allow any use of specialty vehicles within their city limits. They've deemed that they're too big and their roads are probably too fast and their makeup is so large that they don't allow it. Jordan allows the use of UTVs for general transportation, no ATVs. And it allows the use of special vehicles for persons with disabilities. So they've adopted the model like Belle Plaine where you have to go in with a doctor's certificate and say you're disabled, you can't walk, but you can operate a golf cart, and then they give you a permit for that. Lakeville, you can see it allows for golf carts, and again, from sunrise to sunset, but only for persons with disability, permits required. And you basically can't drive anything on their streets unless it's licensed as a motor vehicle, meaning it has a license plate and the DOT has said it's able to be driven on the roadway. Lonsdale, this is probably the city that's the closest in size and similar nature to ours. They kind of sit by themselves, surrounded by rural gravel roads, farms and everything. And they have the least restrictive, or their most inclusive, however you want to say it, permitting process. It allows for ATVs, golf carts, UTVs for general transportation purposes. A permit's required, so they issue a permit after you show a driver's license, proof of insurance that that specific vehicle has insurance. They issue a permit for 3 years, and it's allowed to, that permitted vehicle is allowed to drive around basically as a vehicle. There are restrictions on what roads and certain, they can't go in parks and stuff like that, but generally it's pretty open. New Prague allows for ATVs and golf carts and UTVs for general transportation purposes with a permit. And I'll interject there. So New Prague, Jordan, and Belle Plaine, I spoke to all those chiefs today, and we can talk about that later on, kind of some of their feedback. Prior Lake allows golf carts for general transportation purposes with a permit, and then no other vehicles. So they only allow golf carts, so no ATV use whatsoever unless it's licensed as a motor vehicle. Savage does not allow any ATV use, and then Shakopee allows golf carts for general transportation purposes with a permit, and special vehicles not unless they're licensed as a motor vehicle. So we have a wide gamut. The closest to us in size and shape is basically Lonsdale. They have a similar sized police force, population, makeup. So what cities can regulate with these ordinances? So again, it's the same ordinance that allows you to do it, kind of tells you what you can and what you must do. And there's other things in here, but these are kind of the highlights if you want to have this ordinance. It requires all golf carts to have a slow-moving vehicle emblem. Limits the operation of hours, sunrise to sunset, unless the vehicle is equipped with lights. prohibits operations in inclement weather where you just can't see them, especially if they don't have lights. Requires all special vehicles to have a rear view mirror, proof of insurance again. And the proof of insurance is interesting. They actually spell out in there, it has to have the liability insurance and insurance of that, of a motorcycle. So, again, there's a lot more details to each one, but you basically have to have motorcycle insurance, level insurance on any ATV, golf cart, or anything that's gonna be operated. It regulates on what the state allows the city to regulate. Again, it's just stating its purpose. And then it provides that your permit process, if you choose to do that, for the ATVs, has to have the same protection. If you go to remove somebody's permit, they have to have a way to get it back or to fight that. So, and we cannot prohibit what the state law allows. So, that is kind of what that ordinance and the types of things that you need to consider when you're doing your ordinance. So the definitions, what are these vehicles? They're defined. ATV, you can see it there. It's 4 wheels, dry weight of less than 2,000 pounds, and then 65 inches or less. It measures the wheels from the outside, and specifically says in the statute does not include a golf cart. And then class 1 of an ATV, there's 2 classes. And that's the width from the outside of the rims is shorter than 50 inches or less. And then the class 2 means all-terrain vehicle that has a total width of 50 inches or more, but less than 65 inches. And I'll show a picture here in a second, it includes a majority of the side-by-side ATVs I know that are very popular now and have exploded in use and purchases. But they're a class 2 ATV, most of them. And then a UTV, when those class 2s get huge, then it goes and they get heavier is really the distinction, and they get up to 1,800 pounds but less than 2,600. Technically, the state classifies those as a UTV or a utility type vehicle, but most of them aren't that heavy. And a golf cart, the state doesn't have a specific definition other than a small motorized vehicle for golfers and their equipment. So they can take myriad of shapes and sizes, and it literally says motorized golf cart.
An ATV goes over 65 inches, does it become a UTV? Is that, I don't see that up there.
Yes, it basically, once the width gets that wide, the weight goes up. Now, can some side-by-sides, when they're decked out with special rims and tires, size tires, get over 65 inches? You bet. And that's typically what happens when you modify them. You beef up the engine, you go over 1,200, you bore it out and go up over 1,200 inches, cubic inches for the engine, you can bump yourself into a different category. I also put on here, because it's often regulated with those other vehicles, golf carts, mini trucks, they're not federally able to be licensed as a motor vehicle, so they're a specialty vehicle. Some people purchase them just for their farms to drive around. And they can be operated on private property or if there are ordinances. And then the off-highway motorcycle. I put up this diagram here so you could kind of get an idea of what we're talking about. Up in the upper left corner is your classic Class 1 ATV. It's under 50 inches width in the tires, the weight. It's usually one person. It can hold 2, but it's usually no more than 2 people. And the weight of them makes them, and the size makes them a Class 1 ATV. Again, if you doubled or tripled up the tires, you would kick yourself into a UTV type vehicle. The off-highway motorcycle is what OHM means. It's your classic dirt bike that doesn't have road-going capabilities. The Class 2 ATV, I put a couple of them up there because they're kind of what I've seen are the most popular, are either the 4-place or the 2-place. And both of those, and I checked with Polaris's website today, both of those classify as a Class 2 ATV because their weight, these big Polaris ones down there, the weight are still only 1,500 pounds, which doesn't pump them into that UTV one. And the width of their tires are 1 inch and a half less than what that is. So they fit a Class 2 ATV. And then your mini truck, a lot of people don't know what those look like, but that's a classic mini truck. They come in a little bit different shapes and sizes, but you saw the weights, they have to be between 900 and 2,200 pounds. And then a golf cart, I chose one with headlights and taillights because they do have them. A lot of them don't. And I know a lot of them around town are a lot more fancier than that one, but I took that one just because it's the stereotypical vehicle. So it comes to kind of the point of the staff needs direction. And it's up to you as a council and mayor to give us that direction. Should the ordinance be amended? First of all, do you want to amend the ordinance or not? Second, what vehicles? You saw all the different cities have allowed some, not others. And so that's a decision that has to be made. What vehicles do you want to permit? What vehicles do you want to allow? Where should the vehicles be allowed to operate? We have a city that's super unusual. We're not an encompassed 6 mile by 6 miles, they call it, traditional city. We're piecemeal, broken up, and we're combined 2 cities joined at the middle. So those cities are joined by county roads, which have special regulations about what vehicles can be operated on. So where do you want those vehicles to be able to operate? Do you want them in city parks? Do you want them on traditional neighborhood sidewalks? Where on the road do you want them to travel? There's a lot to consider. What type of paths can they drive on? What time during the day? You know, that has to be considered. Do you want everything just from sunrise to sunset? Or are you willing to allow them, if they have full lights, brake lights, turn signals, to operate at night? What age? Do you want people to be able to allow to operate these? DNR states that at 12 or 10 with a safety certificate, some of them can be operated with parental supervision. Everybody is supposed to have born after 1979 is supposed to have a safety certificate to drive these things. 14 years, DNR states a 14-year-old with a safety certificate can drive it on their own out in the wild, I was going to say, but out where they can drive them. Trails, parks, a 14-year-old can drive them with a safety certificate without adult supervision. So what ages? Do you want to allow only people with driver's licenses, which many cities do in their ordinances, or 18 years old? Those are all things that you can restrict. What should the permit process entail? How long does it take to get a permit? How much should it cost? What's the duration? How long do you want that permit to go for? These are all things that we need guidance on when you're trying to design and build an ordinance. There are sample ordinances out there, but those are all things that we need guidance on.
If we were to allow it, can those vehicles, all of them that we mentioned, cross a county road to go between 2 city streets?
Since my PowerPoint's done, can I stand over there so my back isn't to everybody? I just feel like I'm being rude. So, there are laws that state that, and it's actually a DNR law, that inside the municipality in certain areas, you can allow the use on county roads of certain vehicles. But just about every vehicle can cross in a direct path, 90 degree, a county road. Now that changes with a state highway, which we don't have, it doesn't matter. But yes, you can cross county roads, and under the 829, I believe it's 829, 829 under DNR, we can regulate county roads as well, what vehicles can operate on county roads within our municipality. And mind you, County Road 2, as it heads to 35, right when you get past the downtown, it's not ours on the north side. So we don't have any control over it. But it's a county road, and there's paths on the side, but you can cross them to get, especially out of town, because it's county. So those county roads are able to be operated on by ATVs and UTVs. They're not under our regulation. Another thing that needs to be considered too is who you issue a permit to. Now, I don't know if everybody here, they look like fine Elko city citizens, but they might be people from outside in the townships that do desire to drive their vehicle into the bars, the restaurants, the liquor stores, the gas stations. That has to be considered if you want to allow them to be able to ride in our city. Because if you don't, they could live right across from the border, they wouldn't be able to drive in our city. So another thing to consider is who you want to allow to have a permit. And you can allow whoever you want. You can allow somebody from Owatonna to buy a permit to drive in the city if you want. They would just have to come all the way here to prove insurance and permit and everything else, and get a permit. So those are all things to consider.
Does anyone have any other questions for the chief?
Right on.
What's that?
I would just say not right now.
Okay.
That is something, but I think it was John, I think it was John asked.
Okay, so, as I mentioned earlier, it's not a public hearing. Wasn't eligible for public comment, but I think we as a council would like to hear what thoughts you might have. If anybody would want to speak on this, please approach the podium, give your name and address. Try and keep it under 2 minutes if possible, and also please try not to repeat other points during your statement.
Thank you. Todd Priggy, my current address is 10386 Windrose Curve, Elko. Thank you for allowing us to have public comment, and normally we won't have to. As you know, we were in a meeting a couple of weeks ago and discussed all of the issues that we would love to see, the side-by-sides, four-wheelers, and golf carts. So I think it's a great idea to make the ordinance similar to Lonsdale, where it's more open, as long as everybody has insurance, proof of insurance, and of course, a permit, whether we charge for a permit or not. I think that would be necessary. I think a good permit length would be 3 years, which I think is somewhat standard. I know some areas do 12 months, others do 3 years. Chief, the question I have for you would be, on Polaris's website, they say generals are UTVs. Based off of the description you gave in your PowerPoint, it's the Class 2 ATV?
It fits the state regulations for a Class 2 ATV. And one of the things is players can call it an airplane if they
Yeah,
want.
yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But the state does set specific sizes and weights for it. And under the Class 2, that's why I double-checked Polaris's website. I brought up their specs of the width.
It's
The
1,480
length.
pounds. 14.
Yeah, it's under
Yeah.
1,500 pounds, and you can see those stats are taken right from the state statute.
Yeah.
So it's nothing I made up. So if
Yeah.
you do look at it, they can call it whatever they want because it's a utility. You
Yeah.
can call it, sport utility vehicle is basically a station wagon. To a lot of people, they look the same. So yeah, that's why I checked and I put it up there because I know that many of you have those type of vehicles and they are classified. And I actually confirmed that with the DNR too. I had conversations with the DNR about this topic, and he said, yeah, most of them, until they start being, like many of us do, modify all their
Yeah.
stuff and make it wider and heavier and bore out the engines and everything, and I have a friend, great friend that's done that. He bumped himself into a category where he can only go on OHV trails.
Okay.
And that's a big difference. And it's due to the weight mostly, but the width, it tears up more land and ditches.
So county roads, then a Class 2 ATV that's 60 inches could ride on a county road?
65. It's up to 65 inches. Could ride on a county road
Okay.
unless there's an ordinance banning it, and you gotta ride to the right and everything else, but I could look it up, but it's up to 65 inches. And so, that's why I brought up about allowing outside people to drive in the city, is because it's legal to drive it on the
Yeah.
gravel roads until our ordinance kicks right at city limits.
Okay. Thank you. I also think a good age range, that's one of the main topics, would be in the 12, 13 age range. And if If the kids are doing it, if a kid or an adult is doing something not responsible, they should be issued a ticket. And in the kid's case, the parent should be issued a ticket. That's about all I have. Thank you for considering this.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Todd Bergstrom, 2321 Sire Court. Probably about 6 years ago, I met with Steve Mortensen over at the Elko Police Station, and I had asked him about purchasing a golf cart. And he says, I don't have a problem with it. I don't see any reason why you could get a golf cart. He said, and there was no like limits on what we could do at the time. And Eve was there also at the time. And so I went and purchased it, and since then, I don't know what's going on, but like, I mostly use my golf cart because to get elderly people to the ballpark here in Newmarket, there's people that just wouldn't be able to get to the ballpark. I'm not saying it's an excuse for driving it all around town. I do that too once in a while with my grandkid. But I use my golf cart mostly for the ballpark here in town, whether it's to go get ice at the gas station, for the ball field, or running elderly people back and forth. And believe me, if I don't have that golf cart, there's elderly people not going to watch their grandkids play ball. And I just think, I talked to you, Brady, about this earlier, and if we have limits on it, I don't see a problem with it. Why can't we not be like Lonsdale or something? I remember years ago, the city went through all kinds of crap about the chicken ordinance, that we had to figure out what other cities were doing with it. Well, you know what? Right here, let's look at Lonsdale and maybe we can work something out like that. Thank you.
Thank you. May I address one of these points?
Please.
One of the things I get all the time is, like you said, there used to be no problem, there used to be no issue with it. We started getting a lot of complaints about it, and unfortunately shortly after I started here. And one of the things is you do not want, like the fire chief said, I don't see a problem with it. You don't want police officers making laws and rules. You want everybody to be treated the same, so no matter what police officer you deal with, they're operating under the same rules. No matter who you are, oh, I know you, you're fine, go ahead. We just don't want, I don't want that. I want everybody to be treated equal and fair. And so it's never been about cracking down on people. It's about what's the law, and that everybody should, how do I tell a 12-year-old you can't do it, but let you drive nice elderly people? Just, you gotta be consistent and fair, and the law is the law, and that's the most consistent, fair thing you can do is just enforce it. And so it's not with malice, it's not that I hate them, I think you can see I don't have a problem, it's just, I don't want you to be treated different than someone else, because that's not right. And so that's a law enforcement philosophy of mine, and all my officers, that's where we've been coming from, is to educate you about what the law is. And that's the inspiration for it. It wasn't because we hate the people that are driving it or think you're a bad person, it's just, that's what the law is. And I'm sorry it had to come down to that under my watch, so to speak, but I want everybody here to be able to operate under the law without persecution or fear of being pulled over for doing something that you should be able to.
Did anybody else have comments?
Hi, I'm Rob Schnickles with a 266-810 Freeway. Once again, thank you guys for being open-minded, looking at this, and thank you for all your hard work. Seems like you did your homework. When you say a lot of complaints, what is a lot of complaints? Is it 5 or is it 20 a month?
Since June 1st, 31.
31.
And 31 different violations. And mind you, official on my books is 31. I'm talking dozens of people saying, my kid almost got hit by a motorcycle driving on the trail behind Fish Rock. That's the most common. My kid almost got hit. I was pushing my kid in a stroller in a four-wheel. A council member telling me about a ATV driving with the kid standing on the seat holding on to the kid's head at 55 miles an hour down too. I mean, there's dozens of my officers, if I had them all here, could tell you about people saying, Yeah, 2 o'clock in the morning, some idiot's whipping donuts on his ATV in a cul-de-sac out. You know, it's stuff like that. So I don't have a reference from before March when I started, but from the council that have contacted me, they've been getting complaints and they've been seeing a lot more juvenile use and driving all over the place, driving over private property. So the number is 31 on my records where people have called or we've caught violators, you know, breaking the ordinance. But dozens more just people going, can't believe this guy just did this. Corey from Public Works will tell you all the damaged bars to try to keep motorized vehicles off of the trails. You know, you've seen those little bars across the trail. They're being torn up all the time by people just pushing through with their ATVs. So it's not hundreds, but there's complaints.
I think if there was an ordinance put in place, there was an age restriction on golf carts, I think that would be huge and bring it down the amount of complaints. And I think if we were allowed to use, you know, Class 2 ATVs, UTVs, where you could in similar cities or in the outlying county areas, and, you know, they're clearly known, clearly posted, then people being aware of, hey, that thing's driving by my house, they're doing, that's a legal use. I think that would probably curb a little bit of it too, but it would be nice to see, you know, us in line with some of the communities in a similar size have similar regulations. And, you know, you guys can maketh and taketh away as well, so it would be great if we could try something. But I think that the golf cart thing, it's tough. You see a lot of it, you know, kids piled on it like it's a clown car. And yeah, it's dangerous. That's something that if we have rules in place and it's permitted and somebody abuses that, they will lose their privilege to do it or they're ticketed and the rest of us can go on and do them in the lawful manner we choose to. You know, it would be a real bummer to not be able to patronize our local businesses, you know, on our rigs. And so my wife and I and family, we often, we'll leave from our house and go to Boonies, or we'll go to the firehouse, or go to watch a ball game on Sunday. And it's nice to be able to drive up and fill up your unit as well. You can imagine how much fun it would be to fill up your car at home with a 5-gallon gasoline. You know. So, thanks again for.
Can I put you on the spot?
Sure.
Age, you have a recommendation for the golf cart?
Golf cart? I think it's got to be at least 14, and with maybe do the same thing as an ATV. I mean, we went riding up north, and we got to a Minnesota designated state park for riding. We could ride legally until we got in there. My kids had to have, my one kid that was that was 14 couldn't be in there because she didn't have an ATV permit. Went home and took it online. It wasn't a big deal. It was something I think she did in a day. And it gave her a good general knowledge of the road and some of the rules. And right now, engineers throwing in the keys and let's say golf cart is 8 miles an hour. And not a huge deal, but yeah, it can be a potential problem. But the bigger thing is it could cause all the rest of us to live under these restrictive conditions, you know. So, you know, yeah, I think just education and when people are on the outside of it, they get ticket, you know, and it probably wouldn't take long for the word to get out that, you know, this stuff's allowed, this stuff isn't. But, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who wants to go next?
Hi, my name is Jerry Wintroff. I'm an outsider. I'm a township individual that has Harvest Drive as city. Harvest Drive is right out my front door of my house. So I live in the township, across the street, deal with all the garbage blowing from all the new roof shingles, what have you, into my place from the city. But anyway, I just want to touch on a point that Chief Brady had made about allowing outside people, not Owatonans, but whatever. Same thing. I have some farm equipment. I don't know, would you rather have me drive my Ellis Chalmer down the road to Fish Rock to fill it with fuel, to mow my road ditches, or bring my General in with a couple gas jugs, get some off-road diesel in the winter, fill up my Bobcat so I can clean out all my neighbors' driveways. So those are just a few things to consider. You know, the ball's in your guys' court. My personal opinion is, I think everybody should have some type of liability insurance. I think that's a pretty big factor. You have to have liability insurance on any other motorized vehicle, whatever it happens to be. And then as far as the point you just made about behind Fish Rock, I don't even know there's a trail back there, but I think probably what a lot of people are doing is sneaking the back way in and sneaking around because they're afraid that if they drive down the side of the road to the gas station, take their kids for ice cream or whatever, it's summertime, there's kids everywhere. I think maybe that's where some of that's coming in, because they can sneak around the back way or sneak this way or sneak that way and sneak on the bike paths where people are trying to walk with their kids and what have you. So if the ordinance were to allow it, where you could drive safely on the side of the road, I think you'd see a lot of the vandalism, for lack of better terminology. I think you'd see a lot of that cut down because we all know when the cat's away, the mice play. You know, you sneak around, well, maybe they won't catch me if I take this back trail and cut through somebody's backyard or whatever to get down there. When I built my home, Harvest Drive was not a road. That used to be the snowmobile trail. And when they put the road in, everybody blamed me, which I can't afford the road, it ain't my road. But, you know, we still have snowmobiles because the trail systems have changed and what have you. And, you know, it does cut down on all kinds of, we have a small community, you know, a tight-knit community. You know, kids in summertime want to, you know, they want to enjoy the benefits of living in a small community, you know. And I think if you take away the option for, you know, a mother taking her 2 daughters down to get ice cream or whatever, I think that's a shame. I grew up in a very small community in North Dakota, and I talked to people that grew up in Bloomington, for example, and they missed out on a lot of things that I cherish now as an old man, what I had available to me as a kid. So, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Tim Kniefel, 1010 Teresa Marine, and I agree with all these guys what they're saying and everything. And I also work for the city of Lonsdale. I have for the last year. And after this ed came about, I had talked to a couple of police officers and chief, and you know, most of the community and the council members down there, because my boss, that's on the boss of the city, he's part of the council and everything. And I don't know how many years like I said, I've just been at Lonsdale for the last year, but I've asked them about everything and how that's been going down there, and they love it. They, like, everybody acknowledges it and abides by the rules, and then the permit deal, they have to have a permit, and everything's worked out great for that. And then besides that, there's online, or if you get the ATV side-by-side, whatever, full pamphlet on about the riding on public roads. So it says right in here, and I've known this too, the public road right away and crossing public roads, you can cross, you can ride on any county road, and that says ditch, the roadway, inside, outside ditches, from, like, I don't know, you know, in and out of the ditch, up on the roadway, and down in the ditch to the other side. And you can also cross interstates. It has to be a cross. You can't go down an interstate, and obviously, or I should say highways, sorry. Highways you can cross, not interstates. Interstate's the only thing you cannot cross, but like say, I don't know, whatever the nearest highway is, but you could, like, you go up north riding, you could cross over 169.
Or 19.
Or, yes, 19, like in Lonsdale. So that's just another, I just seen that on here, so I just wanted to let you guys know that too.
Well, County Road 2 is a county state 8 highway.
Yeah.
So technically that's a highway.
Yeah, it's kind of both, yep.
Definition, it
Yeah.
fits as a highway.
And then it's just like how you were saying earlier, you made it kind of sound like you couldn't drive down county roads where you can drive down any county road in the whole state of Minnesota.
Yeah, county, but not a state aid highway. So county roads, yes, there's
Like you
just a
can't,
definition.
yeah, like you can't go down Highway 19 and through law, you know, you can't go down that, but you can cross, you know.
Yep.
So I just wanted to note on that, and you know, I said I work for a city, I just let you know how they like it. Thank you.
He wants to say.
He wants the age of 3 years old.
Yeah, you can't
Get 12, 13.
14.
Hey, Scott Weber, 2202 Francis Court, Newmarket. Nice presentation, by the way. I learned a lot of things from that. One common theme I saw was the cities that are obviously, like you pointed out, closest to us, New Prague, Lonsdale, are kind of open to using these vehicles on the roadways. You know, in Savage, Lakeville, a little more congested. I understand why they're not allowed up there, so it kind of makes sense. Personally, I think all of you would agree we moved to this area so we can do things like this and use ATVs and golf carts. And as they become more and more popular, it'd be a real shame if we lost that privilege. So again, thanks for hearing our comments today. I just want to add one thing about the children driving. You know, you can set an age limit or whatever it is. If it's 14 to 16, they have to have the permit. I would just say you could put a restriction on that no more than one passenger when you have a child on there. Because I think I'm with all of you. When you see these kids driving around with 5 kids on there, that is an accident waiting to happen. And I don't want to see an accident, okay? And that'll wreck it for everyone once that happens. So if you do allow kids under the age of 16, I think just a number of passengers would be a good regulation to have. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Molly Wickner. I live at 207 Maverick Avenue, and I'm a proud owner of a golf cart. And my husband and I purchased our golf cart last year because it's a sense of community. Everybody in our neighborhood has one. Plus, it's good for our dogs to go exercise. So we'll take the dogs on the golf cart ride all the way down to Dakota Avenue. And I know I love living here, and golf carts are so special in this community, and especially Halloween. And you haven't been to a Halloween here, I don't think. But like for you guys, everybody decks out their golf carts and their tractors, and they get their kids on there, and it is huge here. And I would just be heartbroken if my kids could not go trick-or-treating on the golf cart. Plus it's safe, lights, and so it's a sense of community, and we're different from any other community around here. And I did bring examples from Prior Lake with their golf cart permits, which explains like where you can't go, and then with their city ordinance. So I really appreciate the time, and I just love our golf cart. So I would hate to see it gone. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments they would want to share? Otherwise, we're gonna kind of close up that piece of this. Going once, twice.
All right. Thank you all for your feedback. I think a lot of great points were made. A couple people made the same point, which I would agree with. I think the council would agree with. We are a different community than a lot of the other communities that were in there in that survey. And I don't think we want to just ignore that. I think we want to recognize that and have a good discussion to figure out what the best path is. So with that, let's get into it, guys.
I'll start.
Please.
So I think we should allow all of them, and we should permit them, and be careful on age limits. I personally think that anybody driving a golf cart should have a driver's license.
Driver's license, okay.
ATVs and UTVs are already governed by the DNR. They have to be certified to be able to drive those, so I think we have to follow those guidelines.
Okay. Anyone
I
else?
would agree with John. Definitely, we need to keep all of them. I'm more leaning, towards the Lonsdale ideas. Definitely permit them. They need to have liability insurance, but I would say that for a golf cart, 14 years with a certificate showing, when they take their ATV certificate, I think that as long as they show that, they should be able to drive the golf cart, but I would also state, one rider, anyone from the ages of 14 to 16 on any one of the vehicles, can only have one passenger with them.
Don, I know you have opinions.
Well, I would like to say exactly what I want to do, which is pretty much what these guys had said, but as far as the golf carts are concerned, or I guess any of the off-road vehicles, I think 14 would be a good age, just as long as they do have their safety certificate or whatever they need. And a permit from the city. I think that we should charge for it. I think that 3 years would be a good length. But I also think that when we give out permits, maybe we can do something to put the names of the children also who fall under the household. The parent or the legal guardian should be maybe the primary person of the permit, and then maybe just the first and last names of the kids who would be permittable to drive. And then, yeah, maybe one passenger.
Okay.
So should one permit include all the people that could drive, or are you saying a permit for each person that will drive the vehicle?
I'm thinking like a permit
Sounds like a
per
family
household.
permit.
Per
Yeah.
house, okay.
But only those that are 14 or over that
Yes.
have the certificate
Can be
can
named
be
on the
They would
named
have
on
to
the
show, they would
permit.
have
Yep.
to show that
Yeah.
they were
Mhm.
14.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha.
May I offer something, and, because I'm hearing the theme about the safety certificate, how many people here have taken that class? How many people are under 40? Okay, all those people would have to have a safety certificate along to drive, but if you've taken it, does it cover driving rules on the roadway? Does it cover right-of-way? Does it cover anything?
Right-of-ways.
Yeah, but does it cover anything about driving rules that you get when you're 16 in your class? One thing I would concern about, and all of you will say this, is that ATV safety certificate is for operating off-road, the tipping of it, the safe use of it, the accelerating, crossing the roads. There's almost nothing about the rules of the road and traffic laws. And one thing I would caution about is they might be able to safely operate an ATV in a field, on a gravel road, no traffic, but you understand you're allowing 14-year-olds to drive right next to motor vehicles, cross county roads with 55-mile-an-hour traffic in downtown. One of the things I would caution is this safety certificate does not cover driving on a roadway. It doesn't cover making left turns, it doesn't cover making right turns, it doesn't cover a lot of the things of roadway vehicles that a 15-year-old that has a permit, or that a 16-year-old with a license. And that's the only thing I see that scares me as a public safety official, is a gas truck coming to Fish Rock at 30 miles an hour and a kid, 14-year-old on an ATV operating in the same lane, not having the same rules, acknowledgement of the road that somebody with a license does, and that has proven their worthiness on the road. So you're sticking kids with no driving experience on this, and I'm just cautioning, I'm not making a statement what you should do and what you shouldn't, but if you're gonna allow a 14-year-old with another 14-year-old to drive on a 30-mile-an-hour road with, especially a county road, because you'll have to drive on County Road 2 in that 30-mile-an-hour zone, that's a big deal. And I just want to impress upon you about that's a big deal. And that's my public safety concern from that. I'm not telling you what you can do or what you can't. I would have loved at 14 years old to drive one of these on the roadway, but as a father of an 18 and a 20-year-old, at 14, just even with the safety certificate, letting them drive with Main Street traffic, that scares me. So I just want to put that point to you on my thing, so.
Thank you. Josh, did you have, hang on, I wanna give Josh a chance to weigh in.
No, I mean, I think we're all going down the path of, we need to find a compromise to allow us to still have to small down the field, take into some of the health or the safety concerns, that kind of stuff, so make it smart and operational. I mean, so I think we're all moving towards that. Now it's just figuring out how to operationalize it, make sure that it can be enforced and understood and complied with, and everything else that's gonna come along with it, so.
So the fun part about being mayor is I get to listen to all your opinions and I get to steal them. And I basically support everything that was said. I mean, I would love to copy the Lonsdale ordinance, but I don't think we're quite there yet. We're ready to put an ordinance together. So, Don,
Just on what the chief was saying, is there a way that we could maybe not allow 14 and 15-year-olds to cross to or something? I mean, you know.
well, let's start with kind of some consensus. So,
or
do we
maybe
have
a certain cross?
Do we have some level, it sounds like we have some consensus, we do want to look at this and we do want to find a way to open it up and make this more, I guess, community friendly, I don't know if that's the right word for it. A couple of the things, how do we feel about the hours of operation?
Sunrise to sunset.
Yeah.
Sunrise to sunset?
Well, I mean, or what's in
With the
state
lights or
statute, that
whatever.
if it has headlights, taillights, and everything else, then, and if they're compliant with that.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
because what if somebody's up at speed
And a lot of the UTVs are
firehouse or
different,
something,
right?
and then it's dark and you need to get home?
so we have some consensus that sun up to sundown, we want to open it up and make this a less restrictive process, okay. So in terms of, back to your point, Don, about crossing roads and can we do certain things with restrictions? John?
It's not possible. I mean, it's not from an enforcement standpoint either.
It's not.
There's no way that you can judge, as a police officer, that that person is a 14-year-old versus a 16-year-old.
Okay.
So we either do it one way or the other.
It's to stop
And,
them, yeah.
yeah, you can't pull everybody over, otherwise we're not gonna have time for our police officer to do the job that they're supposed to be doing, so.
Per ordinance, you can restrict wherever you want them. You can just say they can only operate on these roads.
But it's just a feasibility thing,
It's just, how do you want to funnel everybody coming into town onto somebody's poor residential road?
Thank you. Kate?
So this might be a dumb question, and it's basically projected over there towards Brady. Would it be possible to once or twice a year offer a introduction to road safety to 14, 15-year-olds, that they have to go ahead and take this class from a police officer here in town, get their certificate, and then they can apply for the permit to be able to, I mean, is that asking a lot? Are we allowed to ask you to do something like that?
I reached out to the DNR officer, and he offered, James Fogarty, Scott County DNR, he offered to come in and train our officers to give that safety certificate class. And I asked him about that because I felt it was important, if we're gonna make this the law, and I saw there was 3 hands here of people who've had that class, I want our officers and myself to be able to teach that class to our citizens. So, and they would be certified classes, and that was a concern. We want to make this mandate, go someplace else and get it. So the DNR officer offered to teach our officers to teach the class so we could certify.
I mean, you can
anybody to
add
use.
in there the portion about road safety,
Can you modify it, keep
ROWs,
it,
can
keep
you
it
modify
certified?
it at all?
That's not part of the curriculum, and we can only teach the curriculum, and I can't make my own Elko New Market certification.
Well,
Just,
legally, we can't do this. It would,
No, you could create your own certified course.
I could be a certified DNR instructor to teach the safety certificate class
As written.
as written, but it would only cover their curriculum.
And there's nothing else out there that we can offer to 14 or 15-year-olds?
Well, I think the Minnesota Safety Council, along the league would be good contacts to see what is out there. I know the Safety Council offers a couple of those as well too.
So these are things that
you know, because
We're not gonna
all we're
blow the
doing today is
ocean right?
providing
Yeah.
direction. So are these things that, are these reasonable things that staff can maybe look into with a different training or educational?
Couple thoughts. Can you still get a farm permit at 14 for a car? For
Yes.
Yeah.
farm
Yeah, you
license.
So if that could be looked into, could that be somehow made applicable, you know, we're going to
No.
get gas for the diesel tractor in the township, for some people anyway.
You'd have to, it only allows you to do specific farming chores.
Sure.
And you can only be so far from your home farm.
Yeah. But anybody can get a permit, a learner's permit at 15.
Well, I was gonna say, when you're, are there any classes out there? Yeah, it's called driver's education.
Well,
training.
Other than that, I mean.
Yeah.
You could actually, I believe, the statute allows, you could say you have to have a learner's permit to operate. You could say you have to have a driver's license. You can allow the safety certificate, but it's, to answer your question, Mayor, that you asked, I don't think it's feasible that
Okay.
we would be able to do that.
Fair enough, thank you.
Just
Rich.
one other, what I think about, what scares me would be trail use. Partly because of the mix of speeds, and when you go on a trail with a bike or a stroller, or you're walking and you've got someone going by you at 25, 30 miles an hour, it's just unpleasant and scary. So that's part of it. But the thing that really frightens me would be crossing 91, crossing 2, where the trails come. So just to minimize the potential for crossing in unexpected locations, I'd be really concerned about allowing these on trails. Crossing Xerxes where it's 35 miles an hour and not a lot of sight distance, especially if someone's younger, don't have the experience judging how fast a car is actually coming, and the potential for that crash, the result would be catastrophic. It's not like a side swipe or something. So
One of the things about crossing and what 2 and 91 offer are they do have side paths that aren't sidewalk 5 feet, they're like 7 to 10 feet, and they're tarred. And
the shoulders, you mean?
no, the paths, 2 has a path, wide path going almost all the way to Xerxes.
So exactly, but when you get to the end of it, you either gotta turn around, come back, or you're tempted to cross 2.
Well, you'd have to cross 2 to Xerxes, I think it only goes up to Xerxes.
Or to get on the path that runs along the east side of 91, you'd have to cross at Aaron Drive, for example.
Yep.
When the roundabout's there, I'd feel a lot better about people going through that to get on those trails, but the temptation for people to have to cross those county roads because of the trails is what I'm worried about.
Well, I think it gets back to something in terms of parks and trails in general. I'm assuming we don't allow motorized vehicles on the trail. I'm assuming we're gonna leave that part of it alone on, say, park trails and that.
Yeah,
Okay.
we don't need anything. Yeah.
So streets mean streets.
Streets mean streets. I'm just reading through the different things that staff's asking us to come up with.
We didn't hear much from the audience about that. I don't know if there's feedback on, would it be important that the trails be open? I think I'm hearing, we think the streets would be adequate, which I
The
agree
only,
with.
well, the street that concerns me is just east of City Hall here, that sidewalk, which is technically on 2, that isn't in the 30-mile-an-hour zone yet.
Right.
Going through any of the neighborhoods, Glenboro, Woodrow, I mean, those
Yeah.
I can see don't go on sidewalks, because you got a 30-mile-an-hour road, it's an easy roadway to be on. But then, how do you get into town without going on a 55-mile-an-hour shoulder, or driving on the shoulder of a 55-mile-an-hour street?
Right.
Well, the thing about sidewalks here is they're also part of our trail system as well too. So when we categorize them, a lot of our links are actually city sidewalks again. The thought would be something the Parks Commission, if you're thinking of putting them on, allow them to go on sidewalks, that's something we want to discuss as a Parks Commission, I think, a little bit too.
Is this, Andrea, is this something that if we keep moving forward with this and we do look to amend this, the public hearing would have to be held?
There is a provision, at least one of the statutes that references public hearings being
Okay.
held. I think that's the DNR statute, so.
And would that be in front of the city council or the planning commission?
It doesn't specify.
It doesn't,
so
it doesn't matter.
Right,
Okay.
this is technically a city ordinance, so
Right,
it would probably be a city council.
okay, that's
You
fine.
can always refer things for comment to any other.
Sure.
Yeah. Most, a lot of your complaints were about people, pedestrians, interacting with ATVs and other things, right?
A majority is juvenile use, and people are just, the general perception of anyone that would not have a driver's license was that it was dangerous, they don't know the rules of the road. I know you witnessed some horrific driving, others have, just because they didn't know. When they looked over their shoulder, they crossed into the other lane. Stuff like that isn't necessarily taught at a safety, the rules of the road aren't taught at a safety certificate course. And one thing I want to offer, Mayor, is many of the people that we see operating golf carts that we know is illegal are operating on those paths. And golf carts especially, due to their lower speeds, high visibility, I haven't had pedestrian complaints of golf carts on those paths. It's golf carts, or it's ATVs and pedestrians on blind corners, driving on paths they shouldn't be on, stuff like that. But again, education is education, and once we get further or later, I can tell you the experience of Lonsdale Police Chief is, you know, once they went to this 3 years ago, they had the education portion the first year was a little rough because people didn't know that the laws had changed, and so it took a while, but once they got it fully educated, they haven't had, he's right, they haven't had a lot of issues. So my point about, I would, safety-wise, public safety again, rather have a golf cart and an ATV off the county road onto a 7, 8, 10-foot wide path where they're separated from the cars and can be seen by people and stop. We can, you know, you can specify that you have to stop to let a pedestrian or stroller or bicycle pass, you know, or do so in a safe manner. Our ordinance measures that already. It says you can't operate within 100 feet of somebody in a dangerous manner. So you can address those type of behaviors, but my thought is I'd rather have them off County Road 2 and off County Road 91 onto the path. And
So that might be
DNR,
done with just certain segments that would allow it.
and that's where I was referring to the mayor, you can allow them to ride anywhere you want, or you can prohibit anywhere you want inside the city limits.
So when, hypothetically, if somebody goes to get their permit, we hand them a map that has a colored diagram of here's where you can drive, here's.
Most ordinances do that. They hand out a map when you permit, here's where you can, here's where you can't. It highlights the parks, you have to stay out of the parks, you can drive to the park and walk in, but
But legitimately, that's also a trail out there too. So what I'm saying is, that's what I'm getting at, is that should be non-motorized vehicles, it's a bike, hike path, that's always been non-motorized. Period. If we're gonna do that, then we better make it pretty clear.
yeah,
in a sense.
and clear in the ordinance, and my point to that being is that they're already coexisting now, because everybody can attest that the golf cart use on those paths is constant in a lot of places.
That doesn't make it.
No, it doesn't make it legal, I'm just saying that as an alternative to them being, a golf cart being on County Road 91, I inherently believe it's safer to have it across the ditch on the path.
I'm not arguing about safety, chief, I'm just simply saying that.
Yeah.
That's always been bike and hike, no motorized vehicles.
But what about at the golf course?
No, is it motorized?
Well, I'm saying there's a path going right in front of the golf course, in front of all those driveways and homes, that all the golf carts drive on all the time to get to the different holes.
They'd be allowed on the street under this.
Yeah, they would be, but I'm saying I'd rather have them on the path, at least on 91 and County Road 2, because a golf cart can't travel, what, 10 miles an hour?
Certain areas I can see that just because of our geography.
And we can map that out where in front of Glenboro, along 91, along 2, the path is allowed because of the high speeds. You can do, to get to your,
Vehicles are just for
you could do,
golf carts.
you could do that for, you could make it golf cart only, or you could allow the ATVs to use it too.
Mark?
What's that?
Is this a concern you have? Do you
Well,
want feedback from-
I just think we better make it darn clear, okay? There's a lot of people see out there that are, first of all, you got a path that's 8 foot. Those vehicles tend to be fairly wide as well too, and and people are out there running those paths, particularly Pete's Hill. I mean, I do see golf carts on that. And the concern I would have is that if we're gonna allow that to happen on park trails, official park trails, then we better do a nice job of educating people, making sure that the runners out there, the bikers out there recognize that it's not completely non-motorized, if you know what I mean.
Well, and I think we're not talking about Pete's Hill, that would still be off limits. I
Right.
mean, so I think we're talking
You can designate
hypothetically,
Certain spots.
County Road
Basically, a way to
2,
get from Elko to Newmarket.
so that we're not shuttling people through Glenboro, then down
Yeah.
in Aaron Drive, and
Yeah.
that's the only way you can connect, trying to find other alternatives to connect Windrose to the other side.
Right, and
Yeah.
I'm not trying to
Yeah.
be an impediment, I'm
Yeah.
just
No, no,
saying, we just need to make sure that we make it really clear.
Right.
And in some
Okay.
cases, I think you're right, it makes more sense on County Road 2, no question about it.
Right.
It's just that, is it wide enough to handle all of that? And
Maybe a sign that says designated
Yeah.
special vehicle trail.
That'd be
So
fine.
somebody running would also know,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with putting in the ordinance that pedestrians have the right of way on that trail.
Are there significant costs to the maintenance related to having these vehicles on trails?
Just snowmobiles.
Just snowmobiles.
They tear them up with those grousers, with the cleats.
And the snowmobiles now travel in the ditches, so I
Right.
mean, they could.
But if you walk down the sidewalk, you can see the damage.
But you could restrict the snowmobiles to the same place they have. to
Yeah.
go.
Well, these are details we can work out if we're
Yeah.
directed
Yeah.
to.
I was just gonna interject with that. Josh?
We've been referencing Lonsdale a lot, the one thing I don't see in there is age, driver's license. Do you know what the age limit is, or driver's license
I
required?
would have
or-
to call Jason, but I believe it's driver's license.
Is Tim still in here? Or did he leave? All right.
would the next step then be to staff to work using the Lonsdale as a blueprint and try and give us some options on some of these?
That's that would be my opinion, but.
That's my opinion.
So then, yeah, that's my opinion too, but then can we have staff do some research on some road safety education
What I
or
would like,
something?
what I would like is staff to, as they've done in the past with different circumstances, kind of provide maybe a couple different options.
Right, on each one of those questions.
Yeah, and then
But
we,
use the Lonsdale as the basic framework.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then as a council, we can kind of sort through that and really define what we would want to see in the ordinance and then bring it back for consent agenda.
To see what they have.
And I was just on the Minnesota Safety Council site, and there's nothing unless you go into driver's training. So,
So, I mean, I think this all sounds great, but in reality, we know this is gonna be a couple-month process, because it's not gonna come back on a consent agenda, we're gonna come back, we're gonna discuss it, we're gonna beat it up, we're gonna, tweak it potentially. What do we do between now and potential law change or ordinance change? I mean, we can't ask the department to ignore current law, or can we? I mean, is there a way to waive? I know the answer to the questions I'm asking, I'm just, is there?
Just step outside, chief, for a little bit.
No, I think you're trying to,
Your discretion
Yeah.
on enforcement as you currently do.
Well,
It's education.
We're
Yeah.
trying to educate what the law is, and until you have guidance, what do you go to, whatever they feel like again? Or whatever the cops feel like again, and how do I tell my one officer, you can't enforce this law? Because we're gonna change it soon? I mean, it's just,
And that's to my point.
We open ourselves
need
to
be-
liability.
We need to be the assholes or the whatever to
Yeah.
provide the guidance, and so that you are.
you can set a time frame for
Something.
whatever you want for the comeback. I mean, it's not hard to go to Lonsdale, actually, we can go online, steal their ordinance and go, okay, here's a blueprint, what do you want? I mean, we can expedite it, it's not, the time frame is your time frame. It's not, you can, correct me if I'm wrong, Andrea, can't you temporary amend an ordinance? I mean, if you set a temporary ordinance to, until we can get, I can't
No, you
answer.
still have to adopt the ordinance.
Yeah.
Doing that will take as much time as probably just getting this ordinance done.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
And with all the timelines, public hearings potentially, what's a reasonable,
I thought the town said that we didn't have to go through a public hearing for this.
I only looked at this fairly quickly, and that may be the case, and we'll verify that as part of the process.
if you
Otherwise-
amend an ordinance, is it different than creating a new ordinance?
No, it'd be the same. But we'll take a look. I mean, typically in this scenario, you don't have to do a public hearing. But there was a statute that mentions something, I just want to verify that it wouldn't be required here.
Well, and I had brought up a public hearing, and for those in the audience, am I right, everyone here is wanting us to do something, right?
yes?
Okay, it can be a little intimidating if there's one person in a crowd that isn't opposed to it and they don't wanna stand up, so it's something, mentioned the public hearing, cause with all the complaints that we have gotten, I do wanna give those that oppose doing something an opportunity to be heard as well. I don't know how we do that, but we
You
can.
can always offer that. You can choose to do a public hearing if you want.
Okay. Well, we don't have to decide that now, or am I alone in?
No, I mean,
Colin?
the complaints are the complaints, and
Right.
those are concerns, or those are residents as well, so, I mean, there's always two sides to everything.
Right,
And I've talked to folks that, I mean, my kid almost got hit by a golf cart, and it's the young, stupid kids that I had fun doing the same type of thing, so I get it off one hand, and on the other hand, I could easily say, screw it, let's get rid of them all.
Can't believe you were a young, stupid kid.
I probably wasn't for very long, but, but I get, to your point, I mean, on any issue we face, when there's a group, I hear you, and there's been those that oppose it and would love to see, as we're growing up into, you know, a different city than it was 15 years ago when I was growing up here with my grandparents. It's just, it is different, but I don't think we're to that point where that
Right.
pendulum has swung to where we don't allow it at all. We find some middle ground, and I'm the least restrictive, like the food truck stuff.
Yep.
Let's ease our way into it and see what works. We can reevaluate it in a year, 2 years, and if it sucks, we can change it. If it's great, we can pat ourselves on the back or whatever.
Donna, you looked like you were gonna say something.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we address anybody not living inside the city limits also, for them to be able to come in and get a permit.
Townships
Yeah,
are allowed.
yep,
I mean, I don't know why we wouldn't.
right, but that they still need to come in and get a permit. just-
Correct,
Yeah.
right,
mhm,
yeah.
Yep.
Does anyone do it differently? John, you kinda look like you have something on the tip of your tongue to say.
I got a couple things, actually. So if we were to have to go to a public hearing, do we have to have the draft ordinance in place and then announce a public hearing? So now we're talking a minimum of a month from now before we have a public hearing.
Yes.
It'll be a while.
So, and then if we have that, and then there's any changes, then we're gonna wait for another meeting, so now we're talking almost 2 months from now.
Right.
And, you know, the one concern that I have is that, you know, we try to, obviously this is an issue in our community, and we should try to expedite this as fast as possible.
Okay.
Um,
When does the next newsletter go out?
Should be September.
Should be September?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm wondering if, rather than having a public hearing, we could put something in there asking people to provide feedback to City Hall.
Well, if we had something to give them, I think what you could do is do what we do when we do new parks. We open it up, show them what it is and what the options are, and get their. Is there any reason we couldn't just hold a public meeting? Does it have to be a public hearing?
No, yeah, you can just invite, you can do exactly what you did here.
Just what we
invite
just did
people.
here. If we can get something written up fairly quickly, then we'd have something to show them.
Yeah.
And then and then have the public hearing at the same time and discuss it again with something more.
Is, you know, as much as I hate, and kind of to your point, John, just kind of stretching this out, and then
Yeah. Almost to the point where we're done with summer. I also wanna get it right. And I don't want anyone feeling that they weren't heard or they didn't have that opportunity. So I don't know, maybe that's an approach we take.
There's a balance in expediting it and then getting.
Yeah.
If we're looking for input that's not through a hearing process, why don't we create a survey monkey and put it on our website and with a few questions and allow people to answer? And then we look at the results of that survey.
Sometimes it's easier if you have a form, your ordinance that's being proposed, so people have something to comment to. Otherwise, you're getting stuff all over the board.
Here's what we heard you say this evening, and we've heard a lot.
Well-
And here's something with some options, if we're not sure, let's discuss those options and the rest.
But your concern is that people that would not want an ordinance.
We want to make sure they're,
Yeah, correct.
And if that's the concern, that's an easy thing to ask, right?
Yes, it is.
I mean, the specifics of it, if they either want it or they don't, right? I mean, that's what we're concerned about. We're not necessarily concerned about whether they are concerned if it's 14 or 16 or driver's license versus whatever. I mean, the specifics are something that we have to define, but, you know, I think, you know, if we're just concerned that the dissenting opinion of changing the ordinance is not being heard, then, you know, we could find that out fairly easily.
Why don't we allow staff a little bit of time to look into the best options and let us know, because this isn't something that we need a council vote on when it comes to soliciting feedback, right? So you can almost just, maybe when Tom's back, you guys huddle and just maybe in a council update, let us know what your recommendation is. Does that sound reasonable? Okay. Josh?
I still go back to, how do we cover our police officers' ass when they're out there trying to enforce laws? And what are we doing to
I think we do our jobs and stand up and say that police officers are doing their job.
Yes, exactly.
So, but when people are getting repeatedly pulled over and ticketed, I mean, we're okay with that because that is the current law as it sits right now. Yes?
Yeah, I mean, I think our police officers, and Brady, you'll, I'm sure, speak to this. I mean, I know it almost feels like just a fancy way of saying enforcement when you say education, but, yeah, not super long, but when you say education, you mean it. You're not looking to try and write up tickets. You're trying to say, hey, I don't know if you know this, but what you're doing, you really can't be doing it.
There's involved and educated citizens, and there's people who go through life without knowing what the laws are.
Right.
And that's with every crime, DWIs, driving without a license, this and that. So
I've said off the record, and I'll say it on, I'll get your back 100% of the time
Yep.
with that case, and I would expect.
I would like to say
council would
too,
too.
kind of back to what I think I commented at the last meeting, that, you know, most of the residents here have either been here for years or will be here for years. So if everybody can just be patient and let us go through the process, we're not gonna take forever, but this isn't the last summer everybody's gonna have, so, you know, we're working on changing things, so just be patient and we've got their backs. So,
One other question, do our special event permits allow for the use of those types of vehicles? They don't, okay.
oh yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
Ballpark.
After hours, ballparks and
Lonsdale,
that stuff.
it's 15 years with a learner's permit or valid driver's license.
Okay.
So that's what I'm going with.
Lonsdale.
Lonsdale does that?
Lonsdale does, applicant is at least 15 years old and provides a learner's permit or valid driver's license. So that's what I would go
And the
with.
permit holder has been through the education.
Yes.
Right.
Yep,
So,
Well-
and taken a test
Yeah.
about the rules.
so
Maybe
that's
we need
where
to-
I'm leaning.
Does staff feel they have direction to organize this at this point? Council, is there anything?
The one other question that's on here that we haven't answered, and I don't mean to drag this on, but
It's okay.
is whether there should be a permit process and how much it should cost.
Yes.
Oh,
I,
I think we,
does everyone want a
Yeah.
permit
permit
process?
process.
yeah, because
Yes.
if we're doing it like Lonsdale, they have a permit
Yeah.
process.
And I think that there's.
Actually, the statute states that you
It
have
has
to,
to be permit.
it has to have a permit.
Yep.
And if we're doing a permit, it has to
It
be
has-
paid for.
Yeah.
Yep.
As far as the cost, I think we need to let staff give us a number.
Yeah.
Yep.
first, so,
Well, the cost is the one thing we would survey and find out.
yeah.
The league has a municipal survey, they probably have something like that.
So staff feels they have direction. Council, are you okay with putting this to rest for now?
Yes.
All right, we'll move on. Everyone who came here, I really appreciate it. I think we all appreciate hearing from you. We heard what you had to say. We're gonna continue working on this and try and come up with a solution that's gonna make everyone happy as much as we can.
Thank you.
So, thank you all.
Just, excuse me, Mr. Mayor. So, I don't know if anybody else here, where are we at right now?
You have to follow the law.
Yeah.
What is I mean, the ordinance is that it's, if you're a licensed vehicle, you're a licensed driver, I can drive my Razor to the gas station to get fuel for my lawnmower?
No.
Nope, you can go from, you live outside the city,
Right?
you can't drive in the city. And anybody in the city can go from their residence to the outside of the city to drive it where you legally can drive it. Your snowmobile, ATV, that's the way it's been since 2011. And there's no golf cart use.
Yeah, no golf carts.
Yeah, I think that's the reason we want to try and expedite this as
Yeah.
much as we
Right.
can.
Right.
I just
Done
wanted
as
to make
quickly as
sure,
possible.
You just wanna
I was still in
understand.
a gray area.
No,
It's still
and I will tell you, my department will continue to educate. We've never been a heavy-handed ticket hammering department, and I don't see a reason to change it. But I hope you understand our point, we can't ignore the law, just like any other law. And when we get a complaint, we have to react because those citizens pay our salary, and we gotta go on their complaints. And so, I don't know what else to say. You know, I hope you know where I'm coming from.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We're gonna move on to a few other things that you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Had your forward legislation for a long time.
City council, staff.
Do you mind if there's a bunch of ATVs in the car, I can go take them real quick? In the parking lot, I can run out there. Hold on, can I have your driver's license, guys? No, just kidding.
City council, staff,
I have
thank you all. I think that went really well, and I think we made good progress, so.
Very good.
All right, reports. Anything for administration?
I have about 5 pages,
We're gonna go ahead and skip administration.
no reports, sir.
Thank you. Public Works, any comments passed on, or any feedback, or any thoughts on what was in the report? Brady, I haven't heard you talk like all day. You have anything for your police report?
Did you see Craig, Officer Craig
Yes.
Bell? Was the only one in the state to get that, senior supervisor position, or senior supervisor certificate, which is
Really?
very cool.
That's
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's taken him a couple of years, and they've
Good for him.
modified it, and due to the way that they modified it, he's the only one that's kind of stuck with it, and was the only one that got that certificate, so very cool.
Right on.
And then,
Yeah.
other than that, just, National Night Out was a huge hit and awesome, and, had a lot of fun, my first one. A lot of great feedback, I recognize some of the people in there, you know, we talked about the ATV stuff, but just the goodwill and cheer, and just the repeated, we love our community, we love our city, we love this atmosphere that we have with their kids, so. Other than that, and Craig, nothing super important.
You guys did a great job. It was great seeing all the officers out there, and it was just cool.
I missed everybody.
We missed you.
7.
Oh, did you really?
So I was late there for the last practice. Football practice. It's
Oh.
We were at Windrose, Melissa and I.
I was wondering.
At 7 o'clock.
Yeah, we were there till 7:45 or so.
What?
Yeah, down by the gazebo side.
Oh, okay, well,
The firefighters are up on the
Yeah,
street, but we
yeah,
were down
okay.
with the people.
yeah.
I was wondering where you were. I knew it was like so close to
I
where
was
you.
talking to neighbors. ATV stuff, you know.
Any questions for the chief? Alright. Fire department, I'm assuming there's no updates or nothing was passed
No,
on.
no
It just,
report.
just kinda wanna say at the meeting, I was really impressed by the turnout from the fire department for 19 night. I don't recall seeing that volume of firefighters out there, and I know in our neighborhood there, probably drove neighbors nuts because they were letting the kids go in and out the horn. But that was awesome. Engineering?
Some discouraging news on the bidding front. We took bids for the generators. We got one bid, and it was quite high. So we'll be revisiting whether I'm leaning towards rebidding that, maybe making some changes to try and get the price down, maybe extending the time a little bit. So lead time getting those generators, maybe some impacts from federal trade policy that's affecting things. So we'll be coming back with a suggestion what to do there. And then we took we got 2 bids for extensions up at Woodcrest. We have another party that would like to hook up. That also came in quite high compared to what I expected based on previous years. I mean, double-digit percentage increases. So we'll be revisiting that to see if we can maybe find a way to negotiate. The other bid was almost twice as much as that one, so it's the season. I mean, this has been a tough year for contractors with all the weather. They're behind. They're not very willing to take on new work unless they're going to get paid for it, is what we're seeing. And that's not just in Elko New Market. We do have one other party now interested in possibly hooking up, and that may give us a little bit of more meat to perhaps get a better quote, so we'll be exploring those angles. So no recommendations tonight, but yeah.
Any questions for our engineer?
Community development.
I don't have anything to add other than what was in the packet in my report. I'm any questions.
No questions? Thank you.
Parks?
Thanks for coming out to the groundbreaking. We're looking forward to getting that started. Rich and I met today with the 2 out of the 3 neighbors for the relocation of the Rowena Ball diamond there. We hope that'll take place yet this year, and they were enthusiastic in the sense that looks like we might be able to help them solve a drainage problem they have back there as well too. I think BMI did a nice job of coming up with a pretty feasible option of doing that, and that should solve our problem over on the other diamond over there too, which, as you know, we get 4-inch rainfalls instead of just drizzle nowadays, and it's really affected the ball play over there, so we're hoping this will take care of it. So those are the 2 major projects going on right now. We finish up out today with our last inflatable and movie, and we've had good attendance this summer. Just one time when we had the mad science out there, it started thunderstorming about 10 minutes before it was supposed to start, so we only had a couple of dozen people there, but we've been averaging anywhere between 80 and 90 people for all the other ones we've had there. So it's and 2 of those, actually 3 of those, were actually in the library. We had to move over there because it was thunderstorming or threatened to. So maybe next time we'll have better weather on Thursday night, but it seems like it always rained on Thursday night, as always. So,
September 13th.
What's that?
September 13th, is that when you said you're expecting the start of disc golf course?
Looks like 23rd, 24th. It only takes 2 days.
Oh, September?
September.
Okay.
Yeah. And don't forget our community picnic, I guess, here on August 24th, from 11 to 1 here. Dazzling Day will be back, and pony rides, and animals, and face painting, and before you name it. Of course, the usual hot dogs and
Is a reptile person coming back?
no, the reptile, originally had the reptile. The police department was disappointed because, of course, one of their old annual reports showed them holding Hector, the big yellow snake that goes about 35 feet.
I had it on my neck.
Yeah, and around it. We had the Red Zoo last year because they were gracious enough to come back out after a rain out. But hopefully Tony will bring some animals along.
There you go.
Keep it local. That's all I have.
Any questions for Mark? CCEC, Ms. Prasad.
Mark would probably be better to update.
Mark, do you have any?
Well, we'll be meeting again August 20th, and we had the wrap up. We had a nice video of the parade itself there too at some point. If you get bored at a particular council meeting and don't really want to go home, I can show you that. And there's 155 slides, so we went through that, kind of downloaded what went well, what could have done better, and the rest of it. So there'll be some additions to, well, we've been putting together a how-to booklet for each one of these things for future generations, so to speak. And we're doing that for the Halloween party. We got started on that last time a little bit too, and we'll be changing a few things around. Mostly the games, we're going to freshen those up a little bit and see where we go from there. Given the season, I think the consensus was last year worked out just fine without having a lot of vendors there and the rest of it, and I think that's the direction they want to head this time as well too. But we do want to add something else other than the craft tables and things, arts and crafts table. We want to add some other things in there too for kids to do as well too. So most of those decisions will be made August 20th, and from then on, it's just a question of assigning people, and everybody does what they do.
Will you be asking for sponsors again?
I'm sorry?
Are you gonna be asking for sponsors again?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When do you think that will come out?
As soon as they approve the form.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
I'm thinking that's why it has to be August 1.
Okay.
We gotta get that going.
Okay.
And then I think most of you know that the Raceway donated about $2,500 for all of our events this year, which has been a plus. So thanks to them.
Other committee reports, scale's tomorrow. What's that?
I guess I'm going, because you guys are all not going.
Yeah, I'm leaving at 6 in the morning to go fishing, so I will not be there, but it'll be at the RTF.
Yep, I don't know where that is, but I'll Google it.
I think that in the email that got sent out, there's a link.
There is.
Yeah, okay.
But I have to memorize it before I go, because I can't have my phone telling me where to go.
Of course you can't.
You just can't hold it.
I just can't hold it?
Yeah.
Oh, I usually take it and throw it in the back seat so I don't get
You can set it, yeah.
That's a better policy, just let you
Yeah,
know.
well, okay.
Regional training facility down where the range is and stuff.
On Jordan.
Wonderful area, yeah. It's cool.
Yeah, I'm sorry I'll be missing this one. I'm glad you're able to make it. It'll be the third kind of part of the, I'm tired of calling it scale reboot, but I guess that's kind of what it is. And, you know, at the scale exec meeting last week, it was a lot of time kind of drilling down a lot of the different priorities and feedbacks that we had heard. And kind of drilling it down to like 1, 3, and 5 year priorities and really specifying a lot what those priorities are, how do they benefit everybody, so on and so forth. So I do have some documentation on that I'll get emailed out to everybody within the next week, and then hopefully at scale there'll be more information that I can get emailed to me and I can forward on everything else. MVTA?
It's August 20th.
Okay. At 35.
Cancel this month? Not just missed, canceled? Nobody was there?
Chamber of Commerce, I don't know that we have anyone for a report on that. They did have, I'll give a brief report, I guess. They did set a date for State of the City. It's October something,
October
right?
8th.
October 8th, thank you.
6:30.
I'll be there.
At Firefly.
At Firefly, so it'll be in the afternoon or evening this time, which will be good.
Good job.
And then,
Will there be an email sent out to remind us, maybe?
I'm sure there'll be lots of discussion on that.
Just wanna make sure.
And then Renee, were you gonna attend a board meeting next week?
I am on the 15th.
Okay.
Joe, I forgot an item in my engineering report that's very important.
No, we're already past you.
I forgot to introduce Kelsey Fisher. She's an intern with Boltman Mink in our Burnsville office this summer.
Nice.
She's a junior at the University of Minnesota from Madison, Wisconsin. We're especially pleased that we attracted one this way.
Nice.
Right.
Is
And
your
so-
car out there with the Packer emblem and stuff on the back, or?
No.
Okay, that's somebody else.
I'm not
that
that far for
So I just wanted to introduce her and let you know, she's had a chance to contribute on some Elko New Market stuff and sat in some staff meetings, and I thought it would be interesting for her to see how a small government operates, so.
There's nothing wrong with being a Packer fan.
Any first impressions? Did we just
Somebody from
screw up royally at something?
I mean,
No, for Minnesota.
the ATV discussion was as promised, like a big chunk of the meeting. It was really interesting.
Very important.
Well, we appreciate you coming.
Yeah. Thank
Thank
you.
you, yeah, thanks for
Nice
having me.
meeting you.
Good night.
You didn't ask her
What?
does she own ATV? What was her?
Just run.
She's in Wisconsin, they don't have any
doesn't.
rules.
She said she doesn't.
All right, discussion by council.
I got one thing. So the Scale Unified Transit Management Plan Committee, or Steering Committee down there, met, August 6th. I missed that meeting, but, the next one is the 26th, so, I couldn't find anything in any of our plans, and this is probably more for Renee, about transit. So, you know, none of our comp plans really deal with transit, because we don't have transit here at this, you know, really. Maybe sometime in the future. But, I mean, this is what that plan is really about. So I have to give an update at the next meeting on Elko, and, or on Elko New Market, and transit, and there is nothing, so I really have nothing to talk about. But,
We did have someone, gosh, was it about a year ago, so MBTA, I think, came out and wanted to explore doing a pilot thing. So there might be some background stuff that staff could probably put together for you.
okay.
Yeah.
Or even Renee, I think you remember it, don't you?
And then,
Yeah.
Mark,
The draft transportation plan.
could we make a note on future
Yeah, it
agendas
does.
to
I
underscale
pulled the
that
thing,
No,
the
it's
transportation
John's,
plans.
there's no doubt.
on reports? It's under the scale piece. What's it called, transportation?
It's the Scale Unified Transit Management Plan.
Yep, Scale
Yep.
Unified Transit Management. Thank you. So going forward, we'll just have that as one of our regular reports. If
Yeah.
Got it. Thanks, Mark. And thanks, John. Anything else?
The the League of Minnesota Cities and Metro Cities policy committees are fully underway. The second meetings are next week for Metro Cities and the week after for the league. General stuff, a lot of talk about affordable housing. So we have the commissioner from the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency coming in this week or next week to the Metro Cities, and then we have somebody from transportation, I can't remember what it is. But then we're looking at some policies related to senior housing deals, because right now the leagues and Metro Cities are very just vague when it comes to any of that stuff. So we're talking about if we have like a work group type thing, task force type group to actually look at, do we need with the aging population and all these assisted livings coming in and the new AL licensure stuff that's really going to be directly impacting cities and building codes and fire codes and all this stuff that many people just have no idea is coming into play in 2021. So I'll keep posting on that.
Which league one is that?
I don't know, there's three of them I'm on. General government, transportation,
Oh,
housing and economic development.
It's
and
not,
another
it's
one.
not metro cities, it's.
There's two metro cities and one league.
Okay.
Local economies, I think is the one.
And then metro cities is what, metro agency?
It's the transportation, general government and transportation, and then housing and economic development is the
Good,
other one.
I just want to make sure we're not going to the same.
Yeah.
Josh,
It has happened many times before.
do you want a section on the agenda each meeting for updates
No,
and stuff?
I mean,
or
because
just
like the
discussion
next
by
one,
council
there's
stuff?
only three of them in December.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
the next one is next week, and then there's one in September, that's it.
okay, all right. Any further discussion? Anyone interested in adjourning?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion by Thurman,
Okay.
second by Berg. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.